So we're back out here. I said I was going to come out last night. Excuse me. Didn't happen. So we're out here tonight. I ordered some new lugs here. I have some in this pocket, some in this pocket. Some new lugs for the wire I can show you. So these are the copper terminal ends for the end of the wire. And the reason it took me an extra day is I ordered these on, or I ordered some of them on Amazon. Got it primed for next day. Everything was going to be okay. They came in and it was like a wish item. It was, you know, way smaller than I thought it was going to be. So I had to go to the store and get these. There's no point coming out last night because I didn't have them. So I also picked up this little volt gauge, voltmeter. So it's just a little digital readout. It's about 1 inch tall and I don't know, 1 inch or 2 inches wide. So what this is going to do is I plan to mount it facing upward on this little beauty cover I'm going to make here to cover the batteries. That way if you're in the machine you can look over and you can see what your voltage is at and just see if it, you know, your batteries are getting dead or, you know, you still got a full charge. And I wanted to order a new on-off switch here. This one is kind of old and janky, so I just thought it'd be a good idea to replace it. But that one didn't come in again, same thing. So we're going to go ahead. I need this machine, excuse me, I need this machine in about another day. I have the guys coming to finish up the garage door install. So I have to get this thing running tonight. Now I did wire, or I did get some wire, let me grab it. And this here wire is a 2-aught. I picked some up from our shop. This is a 25-foot roll. So I had an extra 25 feet there. I shouldn't need that much, but I will just show you. That's probably a bad example. Let me go grab a new connector. Of course, I don't have one that I can show. Anyways, what I'm trying to do is make the wiring on this machine a little larger. As everybody knows, running a smaller wire to everything takes a little bit more power to push through. If you can supply a bigger wire, it works out better for everything, especially with an electric setup. So the wiring, this wire here, that's our ground that goes down. It's already a 2-aught. Then the wiring that goes from battery, positive to negative, positive to negative, positive to negative, those are all very small. It appears it's, I'd probably guess it's a 4-gauge wire. So it's about half the size of the 2-aught. And then the positive that goes from the very end, which is your 24 volt, that goes into that battery cutoff. Again, it's a little baby 4-gauge. And the power that runs over underneath, over to the motor to the other side where we were working last time, that also is a small 4-gauge. So I'm going to be making that a little bit larger, and hopefully that'll get us a little bit more run time on the machine. Other things I was thinking the other night, so this has a 2-stage lifting mechanism. It lifts one side up like this and then it lifts the other side. This bottom one here, this bottom cylinder, doesn't like to lift that fast and it's not that powerful. So I think the seals in it are going and pressure is dropping over the other side of that seal. So I'd like to pull that apart, but like I mentioned earlier, I have the door guys coming, so that's not something I can get into right now. The main goal right now is just to get the wiring set up. That way I can charge it and I know that it's going to work for the door guys. And then once they're gone, I can get back into it when I don't need it so much and move ahead. You can probably notice I'm in coveralls and a toque. It's not too cold in here. I could probably do without the beanie, but it's cold enough. And I can't add my propane heat in that I'm going to be using for this winter until I get the roof seams done. The last video you probably saw that I was a little bit upset with the eave insulation and it being short. We're roughly 8-9 feet short or something down on the one end. So I didn't even start this back wall over here yet, and I still have to insulate around the doors. It's twofold, I guess. I was a little bit fed up with that project, so I wanted to get into something different, just kind of get my mind off of that. So I started on this. And this door over here isn't even sealed to the building yet. There's no upper weather stripping there, and that top panel is kind of kicked backwards. So cold air is coming in anyways. It's not a huge rush to get this place totally weather tight and sealed up, as I can't add heat anyways. It'll all just go out that door. So hopefully we can get some of this wiring done tonight and get this thing ready to go. Enough talking, let's get to it. Alright, so first things first, we're going to start removing the wiring. Like I said, this one over here, this first one is our ground. That one seems to be fine, it's a 2-aught. So once we get over to this one here, where they start getting smaller all the way down. So we're going to replace 1, 2, 3 that are all just little short, I don't know, 6-inch pieces. And then this last one here, which jumps to your cutoff switch, we are going to add it a little bit longer so I can move this switch and then run a new one over there. So it shouldn't be too bad. Tools that you guys have seen before. Got our little Amazon battery crimper. You just lift this up, you put your lug in here, your copper lug I just showed you, and you bang down right there with a hammer and it crimps it on the wire. So I made a video on these. I'll put the link in the description below where you can buy it on Amazon. And same wire that we used when we did that video for the Mustang. So that was just some 2-aught that I had. It's a welding cable. And we're going to cut that, since it's so big in diameter, we're going to go ahead and cut that with a 4-inch angle grinder, 4.5-inch angle grinder. Just a little bit easier than a pair of tin snips, or diagonals I mean. And last thing is I need a knife just to cut back that coating so we can pound that lug on. So we got a knife here. We got our side cutters, or our diagonals. We're going to cut off these little covers that they have on. I'm just going to go ahead and cut all of these off. We know where the cables need to. And like I said, you know, sometimes it's overwhelming to have all these projects and, you know, trying to have a building and a job and everything else. But other times it's really good. When you get fed up with one thing, you can jump onto something else that needs some attention and keep moving forward. So at least you make a little bit of progress on something every day. So that's the goal anyways. Now these batteries are 6 volt. I think I mentioned in here that it was 24 down here at the end. And you make that by grounding one battery and then going from the positive of that to the negative of the next. Positive of that, negative of the next. Positive of that, negative to the next. And you take the positive off the end. So you get 6, 12, 18, 24 at the end. And the reason that they're 6 volt batteries, and the reason you see 6 volt batteries in most golf carts and, you know, stuff that's electrically powered like that, say a little Power Wheels car for your kid or something. The reason that those are 6 volt is because it takes a lot longer for a 6 volt battery to drop down in voltage than it does from a 12. So you could take a 12 volt battery and just go from the positive to the negative once and you have your 24 volt. Sure, that works, but like I said, when you do a constant draw on here, like you're going to drive this thing around for an hour or whatever, it drains that 24 volts really quickly. So usually when you find something that's electric power, like I said, an electric golf cart or a Genie Boom or something like that, usually they'll all be 6 volt batteries like this, and then they tend to run a little longer per charge. Alright, so just a real quick side-by-side comparison here. Let me cut the tape off that I had. So you can see this is our new 2-aught, and then this is our super small 4-gauge that ran in there. So we are definitely making an improvement going to these guys. Now this wiring is not cheap. It's, I don't know, $5 or $6 a foot, depending on where you buy it. but I bought a ton of this in bulk. I don't know, it probably would have been about 2 years ago now. And I bought 700 feet of it for about $1 a foot. So again, I didn't need 700 feet of it obviously, but at $1 a foot, it's not worth having around. It is worth having around. And I figured the copper would be worth that even if I wanted to scrap it out later. So it was a gamble for sure, but I have chunks of it left over. This one was a welding cable. You can see the end here. So this was a welding cable at some point. You have the positive end, or the male and the female ends on this one. So these would go together like this, and you just kind of do a little twist, and they twist lock together. So you can make welding leads. But we aren't going to do that. So what I'm going to do is just take the grinder, cut that thing off, and then we'll start making our little runs of wiring to go in between here. Okay, so we got that cut off. There's our end. What I usually do is I just take one of these copper lugs, put it on the end of the wire like this, and that gives me roughly where I need to cut. So now I'll just take the knife, run the knife around, and pull that sleeve off of there. So you have your copper end of your wire exposed. We're just going to take this lug, pop this lug on top. There you go, like that. Now we go ahead and put it in our guillotine crimper. That's it. Smack it on the floor. There you go. So that's done there. You can see it puts a little indent in it and then some serrations on the back. Usually what I do now is I run around it with on this back edge right here, those edges kind of like curl upward. So I just take some pliers, pinch it down, and then I put a little piece of heat shrink and we're done. So we're gonna go ahead and I'll throw this into like super fast mode so I don't have to talk and annoy you anymore. We'll go ahead and finish all these, and then yeah, I'll bring you back. We'll wire in the switch on the end and we'll go from there. Sorry, the heat gun's cooling off, so I'll try and get a little closer. This little short guy is going to go from our solenoid on the far side over to the motor, and then this longer one is going to go from our on-off switch over to the other side of the solenoid. So that is all the wiring that we need. We're done now, increasing all the size to this stuff. I just got to bolt these two on. But I do want to switch out that switch at some point. I thought I had one here in the box, but apparently I don't. So I want to switch that out. But I'm also going to add a breaker. These are cheaper Amazon version again. It's a 300 amp. I don't know if you can read that. Let's see if we can get it. 300 amp. So this will be plenty for what we're doing. Right now this thing has no breakers on it at all. So if something happened to the wiring either on the batteries or past the batteries over on the pump side going this way, it came down pinched, whatever, it's just going to start a fire and it won't go out. So we're going to put this in. 300 is kind of high, but it's what I have, and if it grounds out, it's going to pop this thing anyways. So it's better than nothing, and if I ever wanted to at some point, I can just disconnect these two bolts and I can put a 150, 180, something like that in there. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to run from this is going to go in between the big one and the relay, the solenoid, that's going to push it over to the motor. So we're going to add this in place, and then hopefully we're done. I'll throw a self-tapper in the back of this, just into the back side of this framework here that's going to hold that beauty panel like that for now. And then once that's all done, I'll go ahead and I'll mount this on the front when I get the new cutoff switch here. I'm going to add a plate. I want to have that all mounted to that cover, so I'll have it mounted on there, and then this will be right here beside, and then you'll have the cutoff switch beside that, and the voltmeter is going to be on the top, just so you can see kind of what you're at, like I said, from up on top if you look over the edge, or from down here on the ground standing beside it. So that's the overall plan. I don't have the piece of sheet metal for here for that end yet that's going to cap that off where all this stuff's going to mount. So like I said, I'm just going to self-tapper this thing on right now, and I'll leave some extra wiring on there. When I go ahead and do that, I can just kind of remount it on real quick. And then that's about it. We're going to throw these two wires on and we'll give it a test run. Shouldn't be like way faster or anything like that. It's just going to be way more efficient going through this big old cable. So that's the plan. Let's see if it actually pays out. Alright, it's easier to jump to the other side now. We'll make the last couple connections, so let's move over there. So real quick, let's just walk through this. You have this solenoid right here. It might be hard to see from where you guys are at, but the solenoid's right here. So our power wire comes to the one side. When you put the pedal up top, when you push it down, that sends power to the little terminal here, which straight through comes the power out of this side of it, and then it wraps all the way around here to the bottom of this motor, and that is your power in. This one here is a ground that drops over and it just goes down to the plate, and that's it for our wiring connections. So we have one last wire. We need to hook up both ends from the bottom of the electric motor here over to the solenoid, and then we have the one that we just route through from the other side that's got to go in. We'll make those connections. I have this ground here, which we're going to cut much shorter, and that's going to go to the same ground here that the motor's using. So we're going to cut, I don't know, 3 feet off of this guy, and that'll drop right in there. We'll put one more terminal on, and the charger then is wired in fully. It's hardwired into the battery side of the battery kill switch, so whether the switch is on or off, you can have the charger plugged in and it will function. And then from the other side of the battery cutoff switch, it drops down to that fuse that we put in, and from that it comes over to here. So we're getting real close now. A couple more connections and we'll be good. So the ground for this motor here that drops down, it's still the smaller wire, and instead of wasting another 1.5 feet of that other wire when this guy's going to go in the trash, I'm just going to put a second one of these on. So this is, like I said, like a 4-gauge wire, so 2 of these will equal as much or more than the 2/0 that I had. So we're just going to put this guy on here like this, and it's perfect length. So we'll drop that on there and make one ground for the other side. We're done. So in case it wasn't super clear before, let's bring this way in. That little baby thing right there is what we had, and it's probably 1/4 of the size of this one. So quite the upgrade that we're trying to perform anyways. Now you may be asking why I left these really small wires here, or I'm putting an end on it. And the reason is, this is for the charger. So the charger is basically like a trickle charger that goes over to the battery. It doesn't need huge cables because it's charging at a slow rate. So that's why I'm not changing these out to the huge ones that we're putting on everywhere else. I just don't think there's a need for it, to be honest. I mean, it wouldn't hurt if you did, but I feel like I can use that wire for better things elsewhere. I'm going to grab the little wire brush on my nut driver, and we're going to clean up the ground where those 3 connect, and that's it. We should be good to test it. Okay, so I don't know if you can see it from there, but we have our flashing light on the charger, so that means that positive and negative are hooked up correctly. I'd like to turn on the power switch, and we'll just check and make sure that the motor turns on and stuff when you push the foot pedal. And then if that all works, we'll go back and hook up the voltmeter. Just want to make sure before we get too far, that's all. There you go. So I blipped the throttle a couple times, or the foot pedal up there, and turns over, cranks up, so everything's good. We're going to go back to the other side and we'll hook up the voltmeter. Again, because I don't have that cover in place, we're just going to zip tie it down. Temporary, kind of like we did with the breaker, but it'll be good enough for now. Let's go ahead and get that done. So as you can see, this is just really rough. I'll zip tie it all up later. But if I plug this thing in, there's just over 25 volts right now, so 25.1. And all I want is for this thing to be on while the switch is on. So if I move it over here to this side, when the switch is off, there's nothing. As soon as you turn the power on to the machine, I have my readout. So that's what I'm going to end up doing, is just running it down to that. So when I'm not out here or whatever, the machine's just sitting, there's no point having this readout on. And then, like I said, when we make that beauty tray that's going to come over here and drop down to cover up all of this, what I'll do is I'll just have this square hole lasered into it, and then this will just drop in out here in the front. Here, let me back you up. You know when you flare the perfect brake line and you forget the fitting? Yeah, that's pretty much what I just did. I have one cable routed on the inside of this and one wire routed on the outside, of course. So, easiest solution is cut the butt connector, put it where it's supposed to go, do it again. Obviously I'm getting tired, which means you should stop. But of course I don't follow my own advice. Got an extension cord in. So now, that's the one we need. Now we can go ahead and put this on there and I don't have to put that stupid white looking cord. Maybe I'm not too tired. Grab a little screwdriver. I'm about ready to do a public service announcement. When you're using a little baby flathead screwdriver, trying to push the wire through the back of your extension cord end, make sure your palm's not on the other side, because the screwdriver goes into your palm, which I just found out. Oh, and it doesn't feel very good. Ground goes to the ground lug, and then black and white go to these two. It's just 3 little screws. You slide that cover back up, put a couple screws in the end, and you're done. Kind of easier than going through and putting 2 pieces together and then heat shrinking it and all that other jazz. So that's what we get tonight. And now we should be able to plug in the charger and the charger should turn on. So let's go over and try that out. So our charger is flashing emergency stop, of course, because I'm tired and I want to go in. The only thing I can think is if it's hooked up to the batteries without the power source, it'll go into like a fault mode. So, alright, so my plan is going to change. The readout's going to be on tonight because I want to leave the charger on overnight to make sure it's charged. And the readout is now wired to that side of the breaker. So I'm going to have to move the readout to the other side of the breaker so it's only on when the breaker's on. And then you can use the master switch to do the charger. I don't know. Let's just see if this works because I'm tired. So all I did was disconnect the positive from the charger. Just take it off for a second, put it back on, and now the charger kicked on. So that's the problem. It can't be hooked up all the time, which I wanted it to be. Let's go see how much charge it says we have. So it says we're at about 75% charge, so this thing will charge overnight and shut itself off. In the morning, I'll come out and disconnect the power just so I don't have to worry. It's still kind of new to me, so there's that. And we are going to go to bed and pick this up another day. So what did we do tonight? Changed all the power wires through all the batteries all the way over to the relay or solenoid that jumps over to the motor on the other side. We added a second ground off that motor down because the piece was just going to go in the trash anyway, so why waste more of my bigger 2-watt stuff and throw the other one away. The charger we wired in the ground and the positive over here. We added a fuse and we added a digital readout to tell us the voltage of the batteries while it's in use. And then lastly, we just finished up the plug so that we have power up top on the deck. You'll be able to plug the machine in down here and that'll give you power up top. So I'm going to say that's a successful night, and instead of pushing it and getting hurt or whatever else, I'll go grab the 3-4 hour sleep that I'm going to be able to grab before work and do it all again tomorrow night. Take it easy, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Do stuff.